Yes, we will. It'll be adorable.
We have kind of a special treat coming up with you two on that seat, and it's Richard Paul Evans, who, of course, wrote the big one, the Christmas sweater. No, that's Glenn's. Mm-hmm. The Christmas box, the Christmas shoe, the Christmas letter, the Christmas gerbil. Anything you write with the Christmas and then fill in the blank turns out huge after Richard Paul Evans' initial one.
The Christmas gerbil, not that
Christmas
not
gerbil,
that
not as big as the Christmas box, but still, yeah. It's one of those. It was one of those sleepers. It's sort of a stealthy sort of hit. But he's written his third installment of Michael Vey in that series, and if you've read the first two, you have to have this. If you haven't read the first two, I'd get all three of them.
Yeah,
and
you can
get caught up because they're awesome. Awesome.
I want to. Isn't it Walmart doing this? Where they're
Walmart has the first two, right?
First two together, so you can catch up in one little purchase at Walmart exclusively,
and then you can get the third one, and then you're all set.
Yeah. Big bestseller, and Richard Paul Evans will be in here to talk about it here in just a moment.
Anyway,
so it's coming up.
Richard Paul Evans, as we join our radio audience.
The Glenn Beck program on the Blaze.
We know now that in the early years of the 20th century, this world was being watched closely by intelligences greater than man's, and yet as mortal as his own. We know now that as human beings busied themselves about their various concerns, they were scrutinized and studied. Perhaps almost as narrowly as a man with a microscope might scrutinize the transient creatures that swarm and multiply in a drop of water. With infinite complacence, people went to and fro over the earth about their little affairs, serene in the assurance of their dominion over this small spinning fragment of solar driftwood which, by chance or design, man has inherited out of the dark mystery of time and space. Yet across an immense ethereal gulf, minds that are to our minds as ours are to the beasts in the jungle, intellects vast, cool, and unsympathetic, regarded this earth with envious eyes, and slowly and surely drew their plans against us. Those were the words spoken by Orson Welles on Halloween Eve, just when the world was on the precipice of war. Those were the opening words of Orson Welles' Mercury Radio Theater, War of the Worlds. But for me, they carry different meaning. It was summer, and I was 7. And it was a beautiful summer day, and I was inside watching television. And in Seattle, where it rains almost every single day, the day that you can, quote, see the mountain today, end quote, is the day that all good kids should be out playing outdoors. And my mother came down and she said, turn off the TV and go outside and play. And I don't even remember what I was watching, probably some stupid Gilligan's Island rerun or something. And I said, you watched TV when you were a kid, as I slammed off the TV and marched out of the room. And that's when she said, excuse me, young man. And I said, sorry. She said, no. What did you just say? And I said, that you watched TV when you were a kid. Then she uttered the words that changed the course of my life. No, I didn't. We didn't have TV. We had radio. On my 8th birthday, I got a copy of the Columbia Broadcasting System's War of the Worlds. And at 8 years old, I listened to that thing over and over again. And for the first time, my imagination was on fire. I could see the metallic creatures that were vaporizing the troops in Trenton. I could see the fog roll into New York. I recognized my imagination was much more powerful than even the imagination of Walt Disney, who was bringing to me and my house for the first time stories in living color. Color is much more vivid in your head than anything that can be done in Hollywood. Fast forward, last spring, my son is addicted to video games, and I have other issues with video games. I run now a radio network and a television network. But the thing that I love probably more than anything is the individual's imagination and the power of books. I received a phone call from a good friend of mine, a guy who helped me fix the ending of A Christmas Sweater, because I wrote the real ending, and Simon & Schuster at the time didn't even want to print this book. And they hated the ending. And I didn't know how to do an ending that wasn't the real ending. I didn't know how to fix it. And I called this guy because he's a genius. And we talked on the phone, and he said, wait. I have it. Let me call you back. And now that's the ending of The Christmas Sweater. And so as we were getting ready to leave Fox and we were deciding what exactly we were going to do, we were in negotiations with Simon & Schuster on a new deal. And I had decided that I no longer wanted to do just my books. I wanted to be able to tell great stories and find great storytellers and tell their stories and let them actually tell the stories and not have to be told exactly how to tell a story when I know how to tell a story. And so do most writers. But then somehow or another, New York gets involved and wrecks it. And my phone rang after we signed this deal with Simon & Schuster, and we hadn't even announced it yet. And it was my good friend who helped me with the end of The Christmas Sweater. And he said, Glenn, I have a series of books that are so great, and everybody I pitch it to, they say, it's too smart for kids. And I said, Richard Paul Evans, I have been praying that we could start telling stories and we could raise the bar a little bit. The name of that first story that he sent to me was, I believe, Michael Vey and the Electric Cheerleader. And I read it, and I said, Richard, I love all of it except the name. And we changed that to Michael Vey, The Prisoner of Cell 21, so 25. Now it's in its third book. It's out today. And last night I was reading with my son, and we're just like 4 chapters away from the end, and they're short chapters. And my son actually said to me, Dad, read quieter. And I said, what? And he said, if Mom hears us, she'll come in, and I'm supposed to be asleep. Read quieter. And we have been reading, and he loves it, and so do I. The new book is Battle of the Ampere. How do you say? Is it Ampere? Ampere?
It's what is it? André Marie Ampere. It's the French scientist.
Okay. Mm-hmm. And Battle of the Ampere, and it is, I think, the best of the 3. Would you agree?
I think so.
Yeah, it's really good.
I was able to bring in some of the emotion I normally put in my novels.
Yeah.
So some of the first kids who read it, the boys, actually cried during the book.
No, boys, don't say that. In case you don't know who Richard Paul Evans is, he has sold, I don't even know how many, probably 20 million copies of your books.
17 million.
17 million.
That's pathetic. You haven't even gotten to 20, Richard.
Sorry.
I think I've actually penned 19 million titles, and we've only
Yes.
sold maybe 8. But anyway,
It's amazing. It's
yeah.
an amazing feat. And this is such a terrific series.
Pat is a huge fan. We are both
huge
huge
fans.
fans of this.
Yeah.
Pat is a huge fan.
I've
as
been
well.
looking for this because we have this giant poster in our office in New York, and I got off the elevator, and it's right there. And so I thought, oh, my gosh. And when this was like, I don't know, May or June, I thought, oh, good, it's out. And I go immediately to my iPad to download it and get your pre-order now. I don't want to pre-order. I want the book. And then
You
I
just had
found out.
You just had a book party because it comes out on sale today. How many people were at this book premiere?
We estimate around 3,000 people showed up at my book
Wow.
signing.
3,000 people.
Where
I saw
was
these
that?
pictures.
It was at Conwood High School, and I'm sitting there thinking, I live scared. I thought no one's going to come. I'm backstage, and my daughter came out. She goes, Dad, it's 2 hours before the show. There's a line that goes down the hall already.
Nice.
We're 2 hours ahead.
That's great.
And then they start filling in, and it was mayhem. I couldn't
I saw the
believe it.
pictures, and it was like, I mean, I thought it was in a stadium. I really did. I didn't know where it was. I didn't know it was at a high school. It was massive crowd. It is starting to be, and I don't know if Kevin has told you this, but he's been watching because we've been watching.
Kevin's the head of our book division.
Yeah, Kevin's the head of our book division, and we've been looking for the signs of how does this series track compared to others. I mean, everybody would compare to Harry Potter and everything else. How does it track? The third one is really important, apparently. You know all this? And this one is tracking now in pre-sales off the charts. And everybody at Simon & Schuster has said it's the third in a series that you know if it's going to be legendary or not, and it is tracking now. It's just today is the first day on sale, tracking legendary series. That's exciting.
It is exciting, and it is so moving to me to see these kids because, there are 3,000 kids there, but they sounded like 10,000 kids. At time the roar was so loud, I saw parents covering their ears.
Yeah,
because the kids were so excited.
Are parents just as much in love with this as I am? Because I love this.
In fact, I think I remember having a talk with Kevin in the book division, and we were a little bit worried at first because the letters we were getting were from parents and grandparents. Love the series. I'm going to give it to my kids.
Yeah.
Well, if the parents give the book to a kid, they don't necessarily want to read it. If you liked it.
Yeah, there are books that you would read. There are books that you would read, and you're like, someday. For instance, Lord of the Rings. When my kids are old enough, that's an adult book, and when my kids are old enough, we'll read Lord of the Rings together. But it's still a hard read for the kids. This one I can read to my 8-year-old son, and he absolutely loves it. But I would take this series and read it by myself just as a novel, too. Right. I mean, I wouldn't have to have kids. I just love it.
I got a letter from a minister in North Carolina, and he said, Mr. Evans, this is a miracle. He says, it's important to me that my kids don't watch TV and play video games. And he said, so we have started a family tradition of reading books together. He said, we have yet to come across a book we all liked. He goes, I have a 19-year-old son who hates everything my 12-year-old daughter likes. I'm bored with all of it. He said, finally, like the kids come in and say, can we read again? He said, we all like the book and we're all enjoying it.
Yeah, we've found the same thing with this series ourselves. The great thing is, I think, although Rafe has had a hard time a couple of times, because the main character has gotten a kiss on the cheeks a couple of times, and he's like, but the principles in this book, I was just having a conversation with somebody yesterday, and they said, what is it you think you're going to try to do? And I said, I'm going to tell the stories just like Walt Disney did in the 1950s. The Disney Corporation went wrong someplace. I don't know where, but they went wrong. But in the 1950s, he had the stories right, and he knew exactly what he was doing. And they had good principles, good morals, but they weren't preachy. They were just great movies. And that's the kind of story that I think America is hungry for, where the good guys do win. The good guys aren't also simultaneously really kind of bad guys. I mean, there's a couple of characters in this series that were bad kids at the beginning, but then they changed. They didn't carry on with their bad. It's like Tony Soprano. We have a problem with Tony Soprano in this country, where bad guys are also good guys. The bad guys here are bad guys. The good guys are good guys, and yet it's not schmaltzy, right?
Yeah, they're kids. That when I came out to write this, someone said, "Well, why did you write this age range? Why?" It's like, I just wanted to write a story I couldn't put down, and so I took all the passion of when I was that age, and I got a character with Tourette syndrome, and I have Tourette syndrome, and my son has Tourette syndrome, and it's like, let's give him superpowers, which will be a metaphor of the power of youth, the power of imagination, the power that we have to change the world. And let's see what happens. And so, like you said, the publishers didn't want it. They didn't think it would sell. It wasn't Hunger Games.
Well, there's no Hunger Games. There was no, at the time, it was Stephanie Meyer's. There were no vampires in it.
Yeah. And I was stunned at how many books were the vampire books and the young adult.
All of them.
And it was and the life scripts for kids were so dark. And I thought, well, I'm not going to write that. I'm not going to do it. It's like, I'm going to write a life script about a kid who's a normal kid who wants to do the right thing, and he loves his mother. And I remember one of the first teachers who read it said, the boy loves his mother. It's like, you would think that was a novel idea. I said, most boys do love their mothers.
So Stephanie Meyer's parents and sisters are into this, aren't they?
This is really funny. I get letters from really interesting people. Emily, who Twilight's dedicated to, Stephanie Meyer's sister, she showed up at an event. She goes, my sons are so obsessed with this book. And she goes, you probably gave him a pre-copy because of who my sister is. I said, who's your sister? She goes, Stephanie Meyer. Like, oh, Twilight. She goes, yeah, now my parents are in love with the book. So we're trying to get Stephanie to, she said, so I'm going to call Stephanie. She's got to endorse it. She's out making her movies. But then I get a letter from Christopher Paolini, who wrote Aragon. And he goes, my mother got, I saw him at an event. I gave him a pre-release copy. And he goes, my mother has a criticism about your Michael Vey series. She's addicted and can't stop reading them. He goes, way to go, man. Send us more books.
Yeah, no, it's absolutely
great.
Absolutely like that.
How many do you have envisioned for this series?
7 books in the series.
7, that's what I thought. Yeah.
7, yeah.
So, I mean, there's much more to come
how
after
it
this.
ends yet?
I have an idea. I have an idea. There's some interesting metaphors going on that I think adults can read into it, and there's some interesting political messages. I always wanted to write, kind of a political novel,
Hold on. Let me take a quick break, and I'll come back and I'll and talk to you, because I have not seen anything political in this. Have you seen anything political in this?
It's been a while since the second one came out and I read it.
Yeah, no, I don't see. I'm interested in hearing this.
Okay.
Back in just a second.
Welcome back. Stimulate your eyes, ears, and brain at theblaze.com/TV.
Yeah, we're just talking here off the air that this book is going to become a phenomena, and in my family, it is working to get your kids involved in great books, and there are, quite honestly, you go for new fiction now, and it is hard to find something that doesn't involve the undead,
Sex,
violence, just there's nothing you stand for. And the first time I read the Michael Vey book, the first volume, I was in love with it. It was like absolutely smash hit. Now it's in the 3rd volume, and this is beginning to track now, like all the big classics that are series track. And Richard has done it. Richard Paul Evans has sold 17 million books worldwide. Walmart has a exclusive version, which is the 2-in-1.
Yeah,
right?
This is great.
So you get the first 2.
Yeah, Walmart
in one.
Walmart didn't get behind the book at first.
No.
I don't know if they didn't think it was
really?
going to sell. Cause,
I don't think they do that. Yeah, Walmart is very
cautious.
Yeah, they're very cautious, and they only carry a few books. And so the first time we went to Walmart, and we said, this is really going to be big, and we're going to be behind it. And they weren't really behind it, and they weren't hostile to it. They're just like, we have limited book space.
Right. Yeah. So what happened is they got really excited to watch what was happening. So they wanted to get behind it. So we did a special edition for the third book for them, and they said, "Well, we need to catch our readers up." So they're the only ones who have this. They took the first two books, put them together, and you can buy it for $10 and change.
Yeah, no, it's great.
Wow.
So
That's great.
This
First
you
two
could only
books.
get this volume at Walmart, and it's the first two books. And then they also have another exclusive book that has how many extra pages?
Well, it has
50?
It has an extra book in it. It has the Elgin Guard Handbook. If you read book 2, you'll understand.
Right.
It's a very important book, and I thought I wanted to write this. We were making a separate book, and we thought let's just throw it in there for now. We'll publish it ourselves next year, but let's go ahead and give it to Walmart. So you kind of get two books
This
for
is
one.
great.
So
The
you're saying I
Sarsource
got
plant
ripped off
training
on my
facilities.
e-version? I just downloaded this
Sorry.
moments ago,
Yeah.
and I didn't get
Pretty
the
much.
Elgin thing.
We're going to sell you twice, buddy.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, that's one of the best things ever is being able to just you're hearing about a book and you can download it.
Love
and it's,
that.
I mean, it is absolutely the best. Okay, so those are available at Walmart, but you can get it on or any place that books are sold. All right, so we were talking before we went to break. You said that you always wanted to write, political thrillers, which I've never seen any of your work have any of that kind of essence to it.
Yeah, this one, on book 1, I sat down. I thought, if I were to take over the world, how would I take over the world? The scary thing is, it took me less than an hour to figure out how to do it. And
It's really not that hard because everybody's doing it nowadays.
Well, if you have control of electricity, if you have control of power, then you have you can do it. So I took that. It's like, how would I take over the world using electricity? And it actually made sense. And so that's how I built it. But what I realized is that the PR game that goes along with politics. So, for instance, in book 2, Michael Vey, they've destroyed a major power plant. This is a good thing. These are really bad people. Hatch is upset because his corporation spun it wrong. It's like, did people cheer the terrorists when they brought down the buildings on 911? You are attacked by terrorists.
Yeah, and
The Electro Clan are terrorists.
Yeah, it's amazing how the good guys in this story have been spun now by those who have power as terrorists. So the good guys are the bad guys to the rest of the world, and they just don't know. The people don't know,
Right.
Because they've been spun.
So now Hatch in the next book we're going to see he's going to start buying up actors and celebrities.
I'm going to give you a book called The Road That We Are Traveling, because you should read it, at least one chapter in it. It is the guy who coined the phrase "the New Deal," and he says, "This is it. This is who we're going to become." And it's all of this stuff. It's everything that's happening to us right now, but it is how to take over the world and how to change the world. And it does say, take over the power. Make sure you have all of the power plants and all of the control of all the natural resources and everything else. I'm reading the part where I don't want to give anything away on this book, but there's a scene where the bad guy, there's no honor among thieves. How can I explain this? When the bad guy takes over from the other bad guys, the really bad guy, takes the control from the mildly bad guys in the corporation. And I would never sit down and read a Vince Flynn novel with my kids. There's just no way I'm going to read a Vince Flynn novel to my kids because it's too intense and just too much violence and everything else for my kids. I like Vince Flynn novels. You told this takeover of this ship in such a way to where it was absolutely real. It had everything in it that would happen, but yet you told it in a way like Hitchcock would tell it. I had no problems. I was thinking about it in the break. I had no problems reading that part of the book with my kids. None. Because it was Hitchcock.
Well, there's one of the things I've learned, especially because my readers tend to be very sensitive, and now I'm dealing with their kids. And my own children are going to read it. You don't have to put a swear word in there. You can say he erupted in a string of profanity. You want to represent these people correctly. They're not, oh my oh my gosh, it's like, oh my gosh, you shot me. It's like, it has to be correct, but there's ways to do it that are tasteful and that leaves it more to the imagination. And I think that's the beauty of it. It's the imagination. My daughter did think the part where they put them in the cell was a little bit scary.
No. I don't get me wrong. It is scary, and it is intense, but it is not inappropriate. And then again, not inappropriate. Because what I was thinking during the break was, I didn't have a problem with that. I was thinking that's one of my favorite scenes, and I thought I didn't have a problem with that, reading that. And it was a really intense scene. There's nothing inappropriate, and yet you wrote it in such an artful fashion that I also, as an adult, didn't feel cheated. I didn't think, this is a kid's book. Boy, wouldn't that be good if it was. It was good. It was good for them and good for me. That's real skill.
Thank you. That was my hope. Someone once said, as a comedian, it's easy to get up there and use the F word. It's difficult to be funny and not have to rely on scatological humor. It takes intelligence. And that's what I wanted the book to be, intelligent. I wanted to get certain theories across. How do takeovers get over? And there's a lot of research went into it. I looked at some of the things Hitler did when he took over the party. It's like there was a lot of research that goes on behind it. And so, adults and the more intellectual readers will read it and might see some similarities. Like, yes, this has happened before.
As part of your research, do you go to the places that you talk about? Like, did you go to South America to research the area and all that?
My editor said after she read it, she goes, "You've been in the jungles, the Amazon jungles, haven't you?" I said, "We built an orphanage in there. My brother owned a lodge. I have been over piranha, crocodile-infested waters at midnight hunting crocodiles."
Yeah, there's stuff in there that I had no. It's one of those books too.
I spent weeks in the jungle. So
Rafe and I went online because you described certain places, and I'm like, I think he actually went to the jungle to do this. And I said, let's look some of this stuff up. We got online. We were looking, and we got lost online just looking at some of the things that you were talking about in the book. So it's great that way too.
The one funny thing is the natives speak language. I wanted the language to be coherent, so I took Mandarin Chinese, which I speak, and I phoneticized it, thinking, well, the Chinese won't be able to read it because it's in Romanized, and Americans don't speak Mandarin. And I've got about 30 people who figured it out and have said, how come they're speaking Chinese? So the natives are actually speaking Chinese.
That is funny. Okay, one last thing, and I just want to get this across, that this is not a mission book. This is a good story, a great story. The added benefit is Richard and I both believe that kids are much smarter than we give them credit for, much smarter than the media gives them credit for. I mean, I announced last week that it is my intent to have one of our programs on this network produced entirely by kids, and I don't mean like kids and then the adults are going to be back in the control room smoking cigars and telling them what to do. No, I mean it will be start to finish produced by kids. We had kids that fought in the Revolutionary War that were 12. Why can't they produce a stupid TV show? Why can't they understand the events of the world? Why do we treat them like they're morons? He doesn't. And the other important thing is that we both believe that the power of the imagination is the strongest thing that we have in our favor. That Americans and all people can imagine anything, and if they can imagine it and see it, they can make it happen. And we are losing our imagination. And Richard is working hard to bring it back, and you're doing a fantastic job.
Thank you. I have a quote on my wall that says, "Our lives are much more influenced by imagination than circumstance."
No idea what that means, but it sounds really good.
It does. I was too stupid to understand it. Yes, kids certainly couldn't understand that. Richard Paul Evans, Michael Vey. It is the third book in the series. If you haven't read the other two, you can pick him up and pick it up at Walmart. They've got the book where it's 2 in 1. But you can pick it up wherever books are sold. If you've been reading it, today is the day that you can finally begin to read it, the third installment with your family. Pick it up because there's 7 in the entire series, and we're not even halfway, and you're going to love this ride with your family. Michael Vey, available in bookstores or wherever books are sold today.